Alright, so in this video we're checking out the new Runcam 6 action camera. This is what it looks like, and it is very similar looking to the previous generation. So there were a few of these orange Runcam, like the Runcam 2 and then the Runcam 4K. It's kind of got this sort of style here. Very familiar with this one from Runcam. And what they've done is they've updated this with a new sensor. Has gyro flow capability now, so it does record gyro data, so you can stabilize the footage with gyro flow. It is this, I think, a very similar 12 megapixel sensor that was originally in the Runcam Thumb Pro W. So the image quality out of this one, the 4K image quality, which is only up to 4K 30 frames per second, is really similar to the Runcam Thumb Pro W. So I'll reference that video down in the video description if you want to see additional footage. It's really very similar. For those of you who are looking for a $99 GoPro replacement, sorry to say that this is not that. So if you're looking for GoPro image quality, you know, with the 4K 60, 4K 120 frames per second, 5.3K, all those additional features, you're going to have to come up with the $349, I believe, for the Hero 12. And of course that has much better image quality, much higher bit rate, of course, on the 4K image. So for those of you that come to the video thinking that this is going to be a $99 GoPro replacement, is definitely not that. It is, I would say, on par with the image quality from the Thumb Pro Thumb Pro W that I reviewed, I think it was last year sometime, maybe more than a year ago. Of course, in a different package here. Is it terrible image quality? I would say no. It's appropriate for the price point, and I think that if you look at some other competing products in this price range, you'll find the image quality to be pretty similar. So the 4K 30 frames per second bit rate is around 40 megabits for this one. So I think that is probably what the limiting factor is in terms of image quality. Now, I think also the sensor is only a 12 megapixel sensor. So, there's only so much you can extract out of that for the image quality for this particular, this particular camera. So before we go over all the camera features, here's what comes in the box. You get a manual. There is a PDF manual as well, which might be updated compared to the one that I got here. It is very comprehensive and plenty of detail. I'm not going to cover every little thing in here because you can read it yourself. And some of the things that you may want to refer to the manual is on how to get the cable to work. There's a USB-C port here in the back for this cable, and the one that was included here has, I guess they wired it incorrectly for the colored wires and where it's supposed to go. So this wasn't working when I first got this, so I got a replacement cable from them. Then it should have this red heat shrink here instead of the black. They fixed the wiring on this one so that it matches what the manual says. So if you got the black one here with the black heat shrink, you're probably going to wire it up and wonder why it's not working, which is what happened to me. And they came out with this new cable. So if you have the one with the red one that came in your box, the newer one should have the updated fixed cable, then you don't have to worry about any problems. If you have the old black cable that's got the wiring problems, you can get instructions from them how to fix it if you want to just resolder the wires yourself, which is for most people in our RC hobby, it's not going to be that difficult. But if you don't want to do that, you can contact Runcam and they'll send you a replacement cable with the correct wiring. You get a USB-C cable for charging the battery. You get a mount here, and there's a different style mount for this part that pops out that the camera will slide into here like this. And this is a standard GoPro style finger mount, so it'll go onto a lot of those type of mount patterns. And then you also have this ND filter set. I believe this is an extra cost. It does come with a UV filter on board here, and I do want to point out that this UV filter, it only works for this camera. The ones from the Thumb Pro W, for example, they look really similar. Here's the one from the Thumb Pro W here in the bag. It looks very similar, about the same size, but if you look at the things that grab on the little clips here, they're much thinner for the ones on the the Thumb Pro W. So the ones for the Thumb Pro W don't fit the RunCam 6. If you were wondering, I'm not sure why they did that. I mean, they could have easily kept the same design and they made those swappable, but apparently they went a different route for this particular camera. So back to the camera here, we're looking at the additional ports. We have I think this is a micro HDMI port. So if you want to send your video out to, maybe do a recording via an HDMI recorder, you can do that. You do have analog video out via the USB-C cable. So the USB-C cable has analog video out, so you can plug this, into this, and then you can plug this into your flight controller. So you have PWM and UART control available. So those are outlined in the manual on how to do that. And there's also video out. So you can have analog video out to your video system through some sort of a video transmitter. The latency on this one, told, is probably not flyable for drones, maybe for airplanes. So there is noticeable latency on this one. So for those of you that are thinking that you might be able to fly through this, I would say probably not, unless it's something that's not proximity flying, maybe like an airplane, where the latency doesn't matter so much. But for like a drone and kind of freestyle flying, this is not going to be appropriate for that. So this door here pops out like this. There's a little spring latch right here. So you're going to pull that out, and it's going to slide out like this. It's a little bit different from the old cameras where the door just slides off. A lot of people lost their door that way. This one stays attached, just swings out. And you got a battery in here, and you got a micro SD card slot. You will need a good micro SD card with at least a U3 or an A2 rating. This is a U3 A1 card. This one works at 32 gigabytes. I believe up to a 512 gigabyte card will work in here. And then you have I think this is an 850 milliamp hour battery inside here. Yeah, so it's an 850 milliamp hour battery in here, and they're saying a runtime of about up to 60 minutes on 4K 30, and for some of the lower resolutions, you'll get a little bit more runtime. Got a little OLED screen here, so we're going to turn this on. So long press the power button. Got your traditional beeps there. This button here is the Wi-Fi and also the settings button. So if you press the button here, it turns the Wi-Fi on, and then there is the hotspot name and password. And then turn it off, you just short press the button again. You can change your modes by long pressing the Wi-Fi button. So long press the button here, it goes into photo mode, and you can take your 12 megapixel photos by pressing the record button. Press it again, then it goes into your settings here, and then use the power button to go down. So it shows the different settings here. This is not comprehensive. There's more in the app. I'll show you that here in a second. So you have resolution, you have frames per second, stabilization. So currently it's off. So you need to have that off if you want to record gyro data for Gyroflow. And if you want to use the internal EIS, or electronic image stabilization, you have to turn that on. There is a pre-record function in here, so you can use that to record 1080p video. And if you're not familiar with pre-record, basically it puts the camera to a standby mode, and then it'll be ready. So that when you want to capture a moment that just happened, it'll capture the previous 15 seconds of whatever it is that you wanted to capture, so you don't miss it. There's the auto power on mode, which is currently off. There's a loop recording, which is currently off. In card format here, with this menu here, and then it shows how much runtime is available on the card, 1 hour and 41 minutes. Current language, you can change that. You can factory reset here, and then the current firmware version. So I have 1.43 on here right now. I recorded most of the footage you saw, what you'll be seeing here in this video, on 1.41, which fixed the Gyroflow issues. When I first got this camera, Gyroflow wasn't working, it wasn't recording correct data, and so 1.41 fixed that, and I think 1.43 fixes a few other bugs, but it wasn't clear what those bugs were. They weren't listed in the description on the download page. Anyway, long press the Wi-Fi button to get out of the settings and go back to the main screen here. And you can see here we have your battery meter here. All right, so go ahead and turn on the Wi-Fi, and then we'll connect up the app. Okay, so you want to make sure you download the latest RunCam app, and then you obviously want to pick the correct camera. So RunCam 6, and then hit connect your camera. And then it'll have some information here on how to connect via your phone. Yeah, obviously the name of the hotspot and the password. And we'll go ahead and connect. And there it is. Click that. Okay, so once you've connected, you should have a live preview of the image coming in here. Of course, quite a bit of latency. You definitely can't fly through this. If you can, more power to you, but you can see, pretty significant amount of latency here in the live preview. But in here you can get to more additional settings, so things like your exposure, ISO sensitivity. So let's go ahead and take a look at that here. So you have a range of -2 to +2 on your ISO sensitivity here. So you have auto 100, 200, all the way up to 3200. And by the way, all the footage you're going to see later in the video is all on stock settings without any changes and with just the UV filter, no ND filters. Change your shutter here, it's on auto. So 1/30 up to 1/240. It's the range. You got your saturation. This goes 1 to 10 and it's set to 6. So the color profile on this one I think is okay saturation wise. I'd maybe bump it down a little bit if you don't like it. Kind of depends. So obviously you can adjust it to your preference. Contrast here I think also could be a little bit lower. I think for most people they're probably like where it's set on the defaults, but for me personally I think I would lower it just a tiny bit. Same with sharpness. I would probably bump mine down pretty personally, maybe to a 4 or 5. Here's white balance, it's on auto, so we have other settings here like sunny, cloudy, fluorescent light, incandescent, etc. And it doesn't look like you can set the actual Kelvin on this in this particular app. And flip screen here, field of view. So there's 3 different fields of view. There's wide, and there's medium, and there's narrow. So you can see how it is zooming in. We'll zoom out a little bit here, and then go back to wide. And wide, of course, is the 155 degrees field of view, which is the standard on this camera. And then you can change your metering mode here. So there is average, which is probably what you're going to want center weighted, and then there's spot. And of course, you're probably going to want average. Change your resolution on this button here. So we have 4K 30, and there's no 60 FPS available in 4K. Go to 2.7K, then 60 FPS is available. And then at 1080p, this is 1920 by 1440, which is I think 2.5K in 4:3 mode, you get 60 FPS. Then you have 1080p, which can go up to 120 FPS. You have 60 FPS, 50, and 30. So if you go down a resolution, you can get the higher frame rates. And here you can go to different modes. There's video mode, there's time-lapse mode. So this is where if you want to shoot some time-lapse videos, you can go into this mode here. That's the one that I didn't really test. So there's some additional settings over here. If you hit this little gear icon, you can turn the date stamp on and off on the file. Electronic image stabilization can be turned on and off here. And in some resolutions, it's not going to be available. So for me, I personally feel that the onboard image stabilization isn't that great, especially compared to like GoPro or some of the Insta360 cameras. Those are really, really good. It's obviously better than having no image stabilization, but if you want to stabilize your video, I would recommend going with Gyroflow. Here's just an example where I was riding a bike with the camera on my head, on a hat, and just you see for yourself here, with the onboard image stabilization, there's still quite a bit of shaking, and it's not very smooth. But if you use Gyroflow, you can see here now, it is much smoother. It's just very, very nice. I would just recommend using Gyroflow and not the onboard image stabilization if you want to get the best stable footage possible. Anyway, some of the other settings on here, you have auto shutdown, pre-record, some of the things that you saw in the menu on the onboard screen. You can turn the feedback beep off here, so I'm going to turn that off because I find that pretty annoying. Change your volume here, auto record, loop recording, power supply frequency, TV mode. So by default it's NTSC, but you can change it to PAL if you prefer that. Change the Wi-Fi hotspot name here and the password. and you can see the micro SD card that's in here. You can format it here as well, and you can see the latest firmware version here. Okay, so in terms of mounting this to whatever aircraft you're going to put this on, drone or plane, this is for the included mount. It doesn't work that well for drones. So here's this an example of, this is one of the drones I put it on here. It has a standard GoPro type mount and you put it on here. It doesn't really fit that well. This camera I think is really meant for planes. And they do have even a little diagram on there, or the picture on their product page showing it in one like a Zod HT plane. I think it was called the Dart XL. And for some planes, this will fit right nicely in the nose. Obviously the mounting on planes is going to vary. You're going to probably need to make sure that there is very little vibration getting to the camera. So obviously, this being a budget camera, the gyro on here is a little bit more sensitive to any kind of high frequency vibrations. So when I had it on any of my drones where the mount was hard mounted to the frame like this here, you would see a lot of vibrations coming into the gyro data, and so you would see some basically not very good results in terms of the stabilization, not that smooth. You see a lot of jitters, and basically not very acceptable results. So if you are going to use this on a drone, an FPV drone, you're going to have to use a different mount than this one included here, or you're going to have to create a mount that's going to isolate those vibrations from the camera and the gyro so that you don't get those unacceptable results. I did try it on the Pavo 25V2 here, which has a little bit better vibration isolation here. So on my review, I had the Action 2 on here on this mount, and I had no issues with gyro flow stabilization because that's a much higher end camera. It has a much it records a much cleaner vibration or much cleaner gyro data. But then when I put this camera, the Runcam 6, on the Pavo Peak or the Pavo 25V2, I got a lot of vibrations that still came through. So it's not as bad as when you're hard mounting it to a drone. This has a little bit of a soft mounting, but you're going to need something that has even more vibration isolation than even this to isolate that. If you're going to get footage on something that's going to have a lot of vibration, you're going to have to really isolate that vibration from the camera. Otherwise, you're going to get artifacts in the stabilization where you basically look smooth, and also you have these weird jitters, and that is from the vibrations that are getting to the gyro and corrupting the gyro data for certain segments of the gyro data that's coming in. Okay, so you can power the camera off of the USB. So if you want to connect this to your craft and power it off your flight battery, you can do that. The voltage range on the USB-C is 5 to 20 volts, so don't go over 20 volts, otherwise you'll probably fry the camera. And you can take the battery out, so you don't have to have the battery in here if you're running it off of USB-C power. So the way the camera with the battery in it is going to be 48.56 grams. And the way the camera without the battery in it is going to be coming in at 36.39 grams. All right, so at the end of the day, who is this going to be for? I would say for FPV drone pilots, probably not as much. I think some of the mounting of this is going to be kind of more challenging. This doesn't really fit that well on a lot of drones because of the sort of the form factor of this. It's going to be better for planes. And when back in the day when I was flying a lot of planes, I used the Runcam 2 and the Runcam 4K more for that footage, and I do like the fact that it does have gyro flow capability, but the fact that you're going to have to make sure that you put it on, mount it in a way where the vibrations are isolated can be a little bit tricky, and I don't think the included mount that you get with this is going to do a good job of that in terms of isolating that vibration. So you're going to have to come up with some sort of DIY or custom solution to do that, to mount it properly on your plane if you're going to be dependent on that gyro flow stabilization. If you don't care about that and you just want to put it on there and you know that you're going to be fine with the footage that comes out of that without having to worry about the gyro data, then it probably doesn't matter. It'll fit fine on most planes, no problem. Of course, you can use it as sort of a budget action camera. I mean, obviously you can handhold it, put it on other types of things and use it as a traditional action camera because it has a battery. But of course, you are limited to 4K 30 and slightly lower image quality than a GoPro. But of course, that's what you're paying for. You're paying a lower cost ultimately. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for my review of the Runcam 6. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.